My name is Lalo Barrios, and my presentation is on Dorothea Lange. This quote sums up Lange's beliefs and basically her way of photographing, as she was a social documentary photographer and she captured very important and famous images during important crucial times. So she was born on May 26, 1895, in Hoboken, New Jersey. When she was only 7 years old, she sadly contracted polio, which she claims that formed her, as it embarrassed her, as it left her right leg very weak, so she would limp, and she would often be called Limpy. But I feel this was just an adversity that she was over to overcome at a young age and become into a strong person. As for her father, when she was 12 years old, her father left the family and was never heard from again. And then onto her education, she disliked school. She would ditch at times, and her mom ended up sending her to a school for teachers in New York. Um, at the same time, that's when she kind of began her career in photography. As in 1913, she attended Columbia University with photography as a profession. And shortly after, she was then an apprentice for several photographers, including Arnold Ginthy, who was famous for his 1906 San Francisco earthquake photographs. And then in 1918, she finally moved to San Francisco with a friend, and here's where she meets Roy Partridge, who was Imogen Cunningham's husband. And here they become the bestest of friends, and they introduce Lang to other artists and other photographers. And I feel this networking really helped her to get her name out and meet new people for more opportunities. Um, she had a name change, as her name was previously Dorothea Nuthorn, and then she took her mother's maiden name, Lang. So as for her career in photography, she opened a portrait photography studio in 1920, and in the 1920s is when she really got her first taste of documentary photography, as she traveled the Southwest and took pictures of Native Americans. In the 1930s is when the Great Depression hit, leaving 15 million unemployed, and at this time, she turned her camera to her own neighborhood, uh, which is where she caught White Angel breadline, which I'll talk about that in a bit. um, as for the Dust Bowl, it was a very terrible time as it evacuated many people and was a suffering moment for many. And Lang documented many images of houses, families, and individuals. Um, Now, in the Farm Security Administration, Roy Stryker's attention was caught by Lang's White Angel breadline photograph, and that's how she joined the FSA. She was also hired by military during the during World War II to photograph Japanese people who were being evacuated from California and relocated. And lastly, Lang passed away on October 11, 1965, from cancer. So this first image is the White Angel breadline, the image that caught Stryker's attention and got her into the FSA. And this image was captured in San Francisco and is known to be a very symbolic and powerful image, as the man turned his back from the crowd as he is leaning against the wooden rail. It symbolizes the economy as and like other men around, because they weren't able to support their family financially and they're very weak and saddened at the moment. This next image is an abandoned Dust Bowl home. As you can see, the door has been knocked down uh, from the wind, the windstorm. As you can see, there's nothing but dirt as far as you can see, and it just looks like it was a terrible event to be in. This image gives a look of anxiety on the man's face as he is stranded in his car, and this face can symbolize the reaction of the Great Depression as the man was caught unaware. So it comes to the conclusion that Lang's images were truthful. Um, this image comes with a quote of the boy's mother, as she says, "Anybody wants to work can get by, but if a person loses their faith in the soil like so many of them back there in Oklahoma, then there ain't no hope for them. We're making it all right here, all before the schooling, 'cause that boy of mine, he wants to go to university." And this is an image for the Resettlement Administration by Lang. Um, as you can see, this boy It appears that he's a hard worker, but he still has hope for a better future and an education with a good career. This image is another image of the aftermath of the Dust Bowl, as also the next three photos will be um, pretty similar to each other. As you can see in this image, the face expressions, they look terrible. They look sad and exhausted, and they don't want to be there. And as you can see, the boy to the left, his eyes just look irritated, like he hasn't had any sleep, and their skin looks beat up. And this image gives us an emotional appeal to show what kids went through and how it was. Same here, as you can see, they're barefoot, pretty dirty. And this girl is from the previous image. As you can see, she doesn't look too happy. Oh, has a shirt that's tied up and all that. Also, this one, as the father quoted, "It's tough, but life's tough any way you take it." This image, Migrant Daughter, is an image of a daughter of a coal miner who was living in a camp. As this image is pretty much how a lot of her images are, with a close vantage point, which allows her focus to be clearly shown and attract the eye. Um, Most of her photos have these similar techniques, and this face expression the face expression on this photo allows us to get a feel for how she must be feeling or what she's going through. This is one of her most famous photos, Migrant Mother, as there was a 32-year-old Florence Thompson who was living off of frozen vegetables with her two kids, and this image is known to symbolize the struggle of the Great Depression. There's another image, as you can see, caught off guard with the face that looks they look exhausted. There's another similar image, another mother, migrant mother, looks also exhausted. The eye on the left looks a little bit more closed than the one on the right. As for this image, also for the resettlement administration, um, is a sharecropper boy who seems pretty exhausted, dirty. He looks like he's resting. He probably had a tough day. And another similar image to this is Mommy's Little Soldier, as they're in a carrots boulder camp. And pretty much the boy's face says it all. He doesn't want to be there. It's probably tough out there, and that shows how it was tough, not just for the adults, but for little kids also. This image is of a Japanese family that was being relocated during World War II while Lange was hired to take these photos. She wanted to expose these photos to show everyone what the government was doing. And as you can see, these people have tags on them, making sure that they have track of them, of where they're going and all that. So after the government, they kept a hold of these photos, and Lang basically didn't see her photos for 20 years. As for the significance, her vision, she has an absolutely great vantage point. Her framing is great. It makes sure that the eye catches the subject, and as I said, her subjects all have a story, so it makes her images symbolic and truthful. As not It's not meant for art. It's meant for showing history, documenting the truth. And lastly, she's also the first woman to be awarded the Guggenheim Fellowship.